As promised, I'm going to do a video of the items I took with me when I went to the coast of Georgia to visit my family over Thanksgiving. It was a quick trip. I didn't have a lot of time to fish, so I didn't take everything I usually would take, but let's go ahead and go over what I did take. To start off with, I took my Sage R8 Core 8 weight. I usually take 2 fly rods anytime I go anywhere when I travel in case I break one. But because I knew I had limited time, I did not know how much fly fishing I would get done or have time to fish. And I knew I could potentially do some bass fishing and saltwater fishing. I went ahead and took the R8 Core, which is more of an all-water rod. Pretty straightforward. I could have took a 7, I could have took an 8, I could have took a 9, I could have took a 7 and a 9, but I just took an 8. So then I took a sling instead of a bag, a boat bag, or a backpack. I wasn't planning on doing that much fishing, so I didn't take that many flies, that many reels, that many lines. I didn't take my leader kit. I just took a few leaders and a leader wallet, so I didn't need to pack a bunch of stuff. And this sling, particular sling, has a place to attach a rod in the bottom. It's a fish pond. It's waterproof, which I like. You don't need a fancy sling. You can put your stuff in a pillowcase if you wanted to and fish out of it. You just need something to hold your stuff. So don't think you have to spend a lot of money on a sling. You could use a book bag. You could get a low end or less expensive backpack or sling. You know, Piscifin makes some. A lot of the manufacturers on Amazon make slings and backpacks that you can get pretty reasonable. So, and even though I took one rod, I did take 2 reels. Now, the reason I took 2 reels is one reel has a floating line on it. That's this Nautilus X Max, and this has a floating line on it. In case I was going to do any bass fishing, it's actually a bass taper, Scientific Anglers bass taper, which I like their lines for cooler water especially. And I also took my Lamson Cobalt, which I really like this reel. I wish they hadn't stopped making it. And my Lamson Cobalt, I had my intermediate sinking line on it. And I fished intermediate sinking most of the time I was there. And you'll see, clear tip, intermediate sink. I fished this a lot. Have a little short leader on it. And we'll talk about this line a little bit at the end of the video. I want to show you all something that happened to it. And about the great debate about cutting loops off or not cutting loops off. So we're going to put that reel aside. Now in my pack, I also took a small box of bass flies in case I was going to get a chance to go largemouth bass fishing. And of course in my bass fly I have the standards. I have a deceiver in yellow and olive to look like a bluegill. You'll see I have peacock herl on any fly that I tie that imitates a panfish, whether it be a bluegill or a redbreast or a green sunfish or a white or black crappie. Any panfish imitation fly, I like to put peacock herl on the back of it. It adds a nice sheen. And if you look closely at a lot of the panfish species, their back is dark with that iridescence of the green and the black. And I just think it adds something to the fly. It's just one more tying step. Peacock herl is not expensive. So I have the yellow and olive, pretty standard color, especially if you have tannic water, which we have on the coast of Georgia. I have a purple and black to look like a bluegill, especially a copperhead bluegill. You'll notice this one has eyes on it. The other one did not. I don't know if it makes a difference, but sometimes I put eyes, sometimes I don't. Once again, the peacock herl. I really like the look of that peacock herl on the back of the deceivers. I don't worry about putting peacock herl on saltwater deceivers, but I do freshwater deceivers. I have one bend back, an olive and tan, kind of looks like a baby bass, and it's got a little peacock herl crystal flash in it. It's on an Umpqua hook, one of their bend hook hooks. I like those. You can throw them anywhere. And of course I have a Clouser in a olive and white, kind of a standard baby bass look, baby largemouth look, olive and white. I have a bunch more Clousers I could have took, but I wasn't sure. And of course, even though it's late fall down there, I did take 2 double barrel poppers, chartreuse and purple and black. I don't tie poppers too often. I've tried and they come out pretty ugly. I do have one tied. I gotta try sometime, see if it works. But I do have the corks to time. This winter, when I have more time, I'll do that. And I took 2 game changers. I did buy these online. I usually don't tie game changers. They're kind of a complicated fly to tie for me. I like tying simple flies. So that was my little box, my little fly box of bass flies that I took just in case I had time to go bass fishing, which I didn't. The ponds and lagoons in the Landings neighborhood on Skidaway Island are freshwater and saltwater. And there's one freshwater pond I've been meaning to stop by and fish, and I didn't do that this time for bass because I was trying to get into some redfish. Okay, my saltwater box. I only took one box, small box of saltwater flies. And on the one side, you will see a little merkin crab in dark brown to look like a fiddler crab, a bubblehead popping bug, which I never use down there because I never have caught in decades of fishing there. I've never caught anything on surface flies or conventional surface on the coast of Georgia. I've done better down in Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island, which is just north of Jacksonville, just over the Florida border. I've done better with topwater there. I have some little Joe Brooks blondes here in chartreuse and purple and white. There's several lagoons on Skidaway Island that have resident tarpon in them. And for those little tarpon, I really like these Joe Brooks blondes. A couple of little tiny Clousers here. And olive and tan for bass. Crab pattern. A little deceiver in olive tan for tarpon or bass. And then some little Clouser minnows up here for sea trout and tarpon and small redfish. Purple and black, black and chartreuse, chartreuse and yellow, pink and chartreuse, electric chicken, solid white. Also the solid white, these little size 6 and size 8 Clousers will also work on panfish, crappie, big bluegill. Same with these short olive and tan and solid white. All those will work on bluegill also. Bluegill, redbreast, crappie, they will work on panfish and saltwater fish. On the other side of the box, you'll see Clousers, purple and black, burnt orange and brown, chartreuse and blue. That one is ginger and brown, good old chartreuse and white. This is the tricolor. It's tan, ginger, and dark brown. This is a Eureka Puglisi purple and black for tarpon in the Savannah ponds. This is a little sea trout fly I picked up off Fish and Surf Charleston. It's just got an Estes Chenaz body with a number 2 hook, lead eyes, chartreuse thread, some olive hackle, so an olive bucktail wing, some flash, and some peacock herl on top. That's for sea trout. It's on a thinner wire hook. It's a good looking fly. I haven't caught anything on it. I noticed in Charleston they tend to use more green in their flies because their saltwater has a touch of more green in it than the coast of Georgia, which is just brown. So that's my saltwater box. Now, I want to show you all something that you don't hear or see much. So the question is, what do you do with your flies when you're changing flies and you have a fly that's been immersed in salt water? You don't want to put them back in a fly box because they'll rust everything in your box. And I have a little fly patch on this sling, I think, or I did. But you know, I don't have a, yeah. So I have this little fly patch on this sling to put flies on, but I also have a dog, and I can't leave flies on the fly patch because the beagle will chew on them. She loves to chew on the bucktail. I've caught her carrying off a bucktail out of my office when I was tying flies. So if I have the dog with me, I don't put flies on the fly patch, and I'm not a real big fan of these fly patches. I guess they work. They don't work that well for me. Maybe I'm just a klutz. But what does work for me, and I recommend it to everybody, this is an inexpensive Plano tackle box. It's got an O-ring. You can get these at Walmart, Bass Pro, Cabela's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Academy Sports. You can get these just about anywhere. Any fishing tackle store will have these. And it's got really nice, solid closures. You hear that? And what I do, when I get through using a fly in the salt water, I cut the leader and I put it in this box. And you'll see here, these are some of the flies I used when I was on vacation. And I did not have a chance to rinse them before we left Georgia to drive back to Delaware. So I got to rinse these out tonight. But all these were in salt water. This is the fly I caught the redfish and the sea trout on. It's ginger and dark brown with chartreuse eyes. But this keeps all the salt water, keeps all your flies that have been immersed in salt water in one place, and it doesn't rust everything out. And so now I just got to rinse these out. I'll rinse them out in warm water and put them on paper towels to dry them. Then after that, I'll put them back in my fly box. But I won't put them back in my fly box before then. So just for a size comparison, this is that clouser that I was throwing in the first pond in Savannah. You can see how small it is. I think it's either a size 6 or size 8 hook, which is good for, it was good for sea trout and ladyfish. The hook's actually a little bent, a little opened up. But this is also the fly that on the third pond I fished, I had a good bite. It was a redfish because he grabbed it, moved off, shook his head twice, moved some more, shook his head 2 more times, and when he shook his head the second 2 times, this fly popped out. Well, you see how small that hook is. All right, that is a pretty small hook. And this is the fly I caught the sea trout and the redfish on down in Brunswick. You see the difference in the hook? This is a size 2. This is, I think, a size 8. So if you're going to, a lot of times you have to throw the bigger fly in that muddy water. That water's never clear. It's always got siltation in it. But sometimes you have to throw a bigger fly to get their attention, and you have a better chance of hooking a fish with that bigger fly. Redfish especially, because they have that thick lips to get around. Now, sea trout and ladyfish and baby tarpon, yeah, sure, you can drop down to something small. And I can take this chartreuse and white clouser this small and catch chain prickler and panfish with it. So I really suggest that when you travel, you get one of these little inexpensive Plano boxes, and when your flies come out of the water, you just put them in the box. They don't have to be neat or organized, and you just close them up. You don't have to worry about rusting out all your hooks and getting your pliers and everything rusted out. So the next thing, I took a leader wallet. Now I do have, don't have it right handy. I do have one of the flip pallet leader wallets where it holds the spools of leader material and you can tie leaders, make leaders. If I was going to go on a week trip and I was going to fish a lot, then I would not take this. I would take a leader wallet and build my leaders as I go, or I'd take both. But pretty straightforward. I always take some store-bought leaders that are knotless in case I get in an area with a lot of grass. This 6-footer I use for the intermediate sink, and then I've got a standard 20-pound 9-foot redfish leader. Nothing really exciting there. So I carry those. I built some leaders to take with me. I like when I build my own leaders because the butt section, I can use a stiffer butt section, like a butt section. On this, for example, this leader I built, it has a 40-pound butt section and a 10-pound tippet. It's 9 to 10 feet long. So I can go 40 pound to 30 pound to 25 pound to 20 pound. I do a butt section, 3 pieces for the mid section, and then a tippet. So I go 40, first section of the mid's 30, then 25, then 20, and then the tippet can be 15. It can be more 20, or you can go lower. You can also go 40 to 30 to 20 to 15 down to 12 or 10. It gives you a lot of flexibility when you build your own leaders. And what I do is once I tie the leader, I've got a perfection loop on one end. You can see the blood knots I used. I take these Post-it notes, I curl it up in a ball, or I wrap it around my hand. I coil it up around my hand. See, there's a coil. And then I take the Post-it note and I wrap it around the leader, and then I write down what it is. I write down it's a 40-pound butt, 10-pound tippet. It's 9 to 10 feet long because I wasn't real specific about how I tied it. And also, if it's fluorocarbon, I will put fluoro down. Or if I use fluoro tippet, I put fluoro down. Because you can use mono on your whole leader, which is cheaper, and then just on the last section, the tippet, the last 24 inches, put fluorocarbon there. And that's a cheaper leader than going straight fluoro the whole way. So you see I have several hand-tied leaders in here. There's a fluoro one. I also use a different color. Oh, sorry. I don't think you can see that. So you see here, I have several hand-tied leaders. I actually use a different color Post-it note for my fluoro leader. I use green, so I know it's fluoro, blue for mono. So I got them color-coded a little bit. And I also tied some shorter leaders for the intermediate sink, and that leader is on my fly rod right now. So, of course, I take something to sharpen my hook, either a file. You got to take something to sharpen your hook, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So, whatever you can use, a fancy file, a hook honed, or a cheap file from Ace Hardware. I mean, just grab something, a fingernail file. You can use a fingernail file too on smaller hooks. A knot tying tool, always take that with me. I'll show you why. All right, so hopefully y'all saw that knot tying tool. Pliers. These are my expensive pliers my wife gave me for a Christmas present. They're Van Stahls. I do not take these if I'm flying. They have a cutter head in them. I do not carry these on a plane when I fly because I had someone try to steal these from my bag before. The one time I did take them. So I got some Manley pliers, which I think the price point on Manley pliers are $40. I take Manley pliers with me when I fly. I do not take my Van Stahls when I fly, but when I'm driving, I do. Another thing I carry is I carry a pair of forceps that you would use for trout. However, they're just not plain forceps. They also have cutting jaws right here. I like to carry tools that do multiple things. I don't carry nippers, but I carry forceps and pliers that have cutting jaws right here, so I don't need to carry nippers. And this one has a little point right here for cleaning out the eye of a hook. If there's glue in the eye of your hook, you can clean out your hook. So this is a multi-function tool, which I like. I like to carry things that do more than one thing. Just like my pliers have cutting jaws on them. I just don't take plain pliers with me. So what else was in the magic bag? Oh, here is a short leader made out of mono for the intermediate sink line. This one's made out of green Maximum Maxim, green Maxim mono. So that's for a short leader for intermediate sinking line. It fell out of my leader wallet. I will put it back in. I used a different color sticky on it too. Put it back in there so I don't lose it. That'll do for now. So you can also see I actually had two pair. This pair is a little bit longer. This pair is actually a little bit better for saltwater. They're getting kind of rusty. I don't care. When they get rusty too far gone, I'll just throw them away. But they have a hook cleaning eye and they have a cutting jaw, so it's a multi-purpose tool. These little ones I always use in freshwater. That's a freshwater tool. That one I always take for saltwater. But I have them both this time. Probably in case I went bass fishing, I would use that one. So that's my sling. That's everything in my sling. Now I want to talk a little bit about why it's so important to either take a hook hone or a file with you. And let's take this little fly out of the box. That needs to be washed. Now, this little fly, sometimes in the winter, pretty decent sized fish are feeding on pretty small minnows. Especially on the coast of Georgia, they do feed on glass minnows during the winter, and they're about that big. So having a short fly, and so this little clouser is made out of, it's not made out of bucktail, it's made out of calf tail, or kip tail. So that's as long as the kip tail is anyway, so it makes a real short fly. It's got a little bulk, a little width to it, but I didn't sharpen this hook before I went to the next pond, and I did have this hook catch on a limb in the water, and I had to pull it off. So we run this over my fingernail. That's not really that sharp. It doesn't stick in my fingernail that well. It sticks a little bit, and that might be one of the reasons why that redfish threw it, is because it wasn't sharp enough for the size. It's also bent out a little bit, so I'm going to bend that in a little bit. And then I'm going to sharpen this like basically a diamond point, which is an upside down pup tent and a right side up pup tent that Lefty talks about in his videos. I'm not going to show you all me sharpening it because that's boring. Alright, that's sticking to my fingernail pretty good now. You see that? That's in my fingernail pretty good. So that's pretty sharp. I probably will sharpen it some more after I rinse it off. The other thing I want to show you about why I take a knot tying tool with me. I'm just looking to see what else I have to sharpen it with. Sorry. Okay, knot tying tool. There's kind of a big debate on a lot of the channels about whether you cut that loop, the commercial loop that comes with a fly line, whether you cut the loop off or not. So I got this fly line and this fly wrapped around a tree limb on a back cast, and it had a clouser on it, went back, hit the tree limb, and it lassoed around the tree limb 3 times. The hook didn't go into the tree limb. The leader just wrapped around it like it's wrapped around my finger right now. That's what it did to the tree limb. It just wrapped around, and my clouser was just down here dangling. So I pulled on this fly line, put my rod straight at it, wrapped the fly line around the reel seat, and pulled it and pulled it and pulled it, and the tree limb broke. And the tree limb was about that big around, but it was old and somewhat rotted from being submerged in the water on high tide. So I inspected my leader, and I ended up cutting off the last section of this leader, which this was on an intermediate sinking line, so it doesn't matter that it's a really short leader. But what I noticed, and I don't know if you're all going to be able to see this, is, let me get the leader off of it. This is going to be really hard to see, but I want to show y'all. So if you look at this fly line, there's grooves in this fly line now. Let me adjust the light. I'm going to adjust the light and block my face. But if you look on this fly line, right here and right here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see them. Maybe I can magnify it? No, I can't magnify it. I can't magnify it. But if I could, I think you can almost see it. Let me point to it with my Bobkin. If you'll look right at the end of the Bobkin right there, there's some distortion. It doesn't, it's kind of blurry, I know. Let me bring it over here. There's some distortion in the fly line right there. And that distortion is where and see it right there? You got kind of a clear, then a little hazy, and then clear on top. That's where the leader cut into the outer coating of the loop. And now there's actually a cut in that loop. And that's going to fail one day. Needless to say, I was adamant to get my fly back, and I pulled it very hard enough to break the branch. But it cut that loop. It put cuts in that loop, and that loop's going to fail. If I pull that hard again, that loop could cut, that mono leader could cut right through that loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that fly line, do a nail knot, piece of 40-pound mono, probably Maxim Green, in either 30 or 40 pound, probably 30, tie a perfection loop on it, and that'll be how I do my leader to fly line connection. Now, if it had cut that loop when I was in the field, what I would have done, because I didn't have my big leader kit with me, I would have took one of my hand-tied leaders, this one right here, or the one in my leader wallet, this green Maxim, this leader here, this first section is 40 pound. I would have come here, kept that perfection loop on one end, come here and cut this 40 pound, and use my knot tool, my nail knot tool, and put about a section that long onto this intermediate sinking fly line if I had busted that loop all the way through. And then I'd been good to go. Even though I didn't have my leader building kit with me, I still had material and one of my handmade leaders that I could use to do that. So you don't need a nail knot tool. They make it really easy to do a nail knot. They're cheap. It also has a hook here, and when you tie a regular knot, you can actually put your fly in here. You can put your fly in this loop and use it to pull your knot down tight, cinch it down tight. So it's kind of a nice little tool to have. They're not expensive. I think it's called Tie Fast. You can get it from any fly shop. And that would save the day if I had busted or broken or cut all the way through that fly line, which I came close to doing. And I'm going to have to repair that. So that was the things that I took with me because it was a short trip. I'm looking to see if I can grab a few things that I would take on a longer trip. But that's what I took to Savannah. I used a lot of clousers, not a lot of top water action going. On a longer trip, I would have took one of my leader wallets, not leader wallets, I'm sorry, one of my leader holders. This has spools of leader material in it, so I can build in leaders. This fits easier into a backpack than a sling. That's why I took a leader wallets. These are a little big to carry in your sling, but they do fit in a backpack. So if I'm going on a longer trip, I would take one of these, and I would have the ability to build my own leaders if I tore my leaders up or ran out of leader material. But I had enough leaders for the 2 4-hour sessions I got to fish. Of course, oh, sorry, I disappeared. Of course, if I was going for a longer trip, I would have packed 2 fly rods, but I didn't think I'd have that much time to fish. So that's it. And that's what I took to the coast of Georgia. Worked just fine. I used predominant clousers in my intermediate sink this time. Weather had cooled down. The water temperature had cooled down, so the fish were not up on the surface at all. And if you have any questions, post them. If you like this video, let me know. I'll do more videos on when I go places, the things I take. Or besides the generic, I always take these certain flies with me that I have videos for that. I always have certain saltwater flies I take with me and certain freshwater flies I take with me. I already posted videos for that. So that's all. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and look forward to talking to you all again soon.